Well, now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Al Ferguson, and let's queer up South Florida and Florida. The Stonewall Executive Director sees 55 years of Pride celebration as freedom, now threatened. It's been 55 years since the uprising at the Stonewall Inn in New York City sparked a global movement for LGBTQ rights. But this year, Pride is more than a celebration. It's a protest again. Robert Kesten, a human rights activist and executive director of the Stonewall National Museum, Archives, and Library in Fort Lauderdale, is sounding the alarm. In an article that he has written for the Miami Herald, Kesten says, quote, "In a nation that has pushed for greater individual freedoms, even when difficult, it is hard to accept a United States that is closing doors rather than opening them," end quote. From a few brave marchers in 1970 to millions around the globe, Pride has evolved remembering the past, honoring identity and fighting for justice. But now, Kesten warns, quote, "With the official death of political DEI, corporations and foundations have left or limited their support of Pride's and other LGBTQ+ activities," end quote. He points to a worrying hand, silence, replacing progress in places where Pride once marched. Examples he gives are Moscow, Uganda, and even here in the United States. Still, there's hope, according to Kesten. He believes Pride 2025 can re-energize us and rekindle the Stonewall flame. That's a quote from Kesten. This June, under the rainbow flag, we don't just celebrate, we resist. I read his op-ed in the Miami Herald, and I thought it was quite good. He hits a bullseye of something that we're having difficulty addressing. We have to have our allies outside of our community. We're not enough by ourselves. We are the starting point. We're the match. But we have to have allies. And one of the things that radical GOP, our governor in Florida, our president at the White House, they have been highly effective in these radical point of views of the rejection of diversity and inclusion. And that strategy is something that our activism in the United States for LGBT has not been really good on. It has been slow to respond to it. And they've created an anchor on the beachhead, and it's been successful.
Well, I agree to that in points. I come with a little bit of different background. I've been doing nonprofit work since I was in college in the 80s. I helped establish, or was one of the first people to help establish, a local group in St. Louis called EFA, Effort Foundation for AIDS in St. Louis. I watched a number of people die over those years in the 80s and 90s. And I myself established a nonprofit years ago that my partner at the time and I grew for children's charities and any grassroots organization. I think in addition to what you have said there, I think the gay community at large has failed itself in terms of educating itself. The pictures you showed of Robert at the Stonewall Library, if you looked at that room, it was 75 and above, and it was white. We are not doing a fair job outside of the bars and the celebrations and the Pride Fests and the fun things in the gay community. Yeah. We have failed ourselves to reach out to all of the different groups that make up the LGBT community, but we've also failed to reach out to those people other than to ask for money. We don't discuss enough the history that we have, that we've been around since the beginning of dawn. We don't discuss how the Nazi Germans created all of the marketing materials that are being used against us today. All the stereotypes are a tool that the Nazis created prior to World War II to help decimate the gay community and keep us with pink triangles in the camps. We have failed to reach out to the black community and said we share a lot of common things, or the Latin community, however big you want to define that. I don't want to be specific to
Latino, Hispanic.
But we have failed, and then we've also failed to reach out to politicians other than an election year. Our community has failed itself, and we still don't know how to talk about marriage. Marriage is not about a religious ceremony for the gay community. It's a legal ceremony. So we can inherit, and we can have rights, and we can have pensions and shared combined resources for our loved ones and our insular formulas. We've been 50 years successful, growing over those 50 years. Now we're being challenged again, and I only hope that younger people and people of color and people, our straight allies, our families and our parents and our bosses and all the different jobs that we hold, we have to re-educate those people and say, this isn't about you losing things. This is about us joining the table.
Yeah.
This is our history. We have died.
I'm curious, Angel, to that challenge that Buddy puts out there, you know, and I have a very clear picture as a big supporter of Robert Kesten in the Stonewall Museum. I know
and I support him as well
in your work. There's a challenge to your generation. How do you take that the Stonewall Museum is not relevant to your age group in LGBT?
I don't know. I mean, like me, like I'm one of the, I come out, right? Like I stand out in that I do value Stonewall. I do value the history of the Stonewall. I think I'm very big on supporting Stonewall, and it's because it's a movement. It's a movement. And I think the younger generation, they don't realize that. They're stuck on Grindr. They're stuck on, you know, the Pride festivals. They're stuck on, you know, having
bars.
fun. The bars is great. This is all great, but
but it's history.
It's history, and we need to go over that. And it's unfortunate, but to add on, right, like I've just looked up a little bit of the timeline, right, of corporate DEI initiatives, right. On January 24th, Target curbed its LGBTQ plus Pride merchandise line. On January 17th, the FBI, you know, closed its DEI office. On February 10th, PBS shuttered its diversity, inclusion, and equity office, right? Coca-Cola now too, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Bank of America, right?
Anheuser-Busch.
Right, these companies, it's like a domino effect, right? I mean, people my generation, they're not understanding right now. Corporate America is turning its back on you. And so I would love to have conversations with people my age and say, guys, you know, let's get off of Grindr and let's, like, you know, do activism. Let's do political engagement. Let's do voter registration.
But let's also do our history so that we know we have to figure out how to talk to these organizations and present ourselves.
We need to understand how to talk to the youth and the younger generations that are going to inherit the Stonewall movement. And it's, to me, I look around and I'm just like, I'm sorry, Al, like, they're not responding. They're just not responding. I don't like to be the one, like, speaking out. You know, sometimes I feel like there's so many younger people that would do better in my seat, right? Would do better here speaking on behalf of, you know, younger people, but they don't want to sometimes. And it's kind of hard to shake it out of them. Not everyone like that.
That's exactly what Robert Kesten does from the Stonewall Museum, is ringing the alarm.
Right.
We've had 50 great years of success since 1969. The last 5 have,
and it's been slow success, gradual success.
Yeah.
But I think that Robert's got the right idea. It's gonna smack us back a bit. It's gonna sting and hurt. People are gonna get sick. People are gonna die. People are gonna get hurt. But I think it's going to help the community come back to the table, as we all need to be.
Yeah, well, we certainly, a core purpose of Core News Tonight is to bring the community
That's why we're
back
here.
to the table. Well, that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Our LGBTQ stories need to be followed, and you do that by